To the beach, y'all.
The emergency financial manager law also failed, but we did not find that out until Wednesday morning. Public Act 4 was the closest of all the ballot proposals and was put in place to help struggling cities and school districts get through a financial crisis. Many, however, called it an overreach. Lindsey Veramis talked with the governor about what happens next.
While voters have rejected Michigan's emergency financial manager law, Governor Rick Snyder maintains the law was working. Of Michigan's 8 emergency managed communities and districts, he says 3 were transitioning out of management.
If we don't have those same tools, are we going to end up with emergency managers longer than what I would have liked? That was one of the good parts of having the law.
Union leaders see it differently.
You know, that was a win for the democratic process. The fact that a governor could send in a manager and kick out elected officials and rip up collective bargaining contracts is a bridge too far.
The governor says the state now reverts back to Michigan's old financial manager law, a weaker version from the 90s, giving managers only limited powers. They have an attorney general's opinion backing that up, but keep in mind it is being challenged in court.
If it was found that Public Act 72 wasn't around, there wouldn't really be any emergency manager law, and that would be a concern in my view.
Snyder says financially troubled communities would have no option but bankruptcy.
Right now, this is the worst piece of legislation that's on the books anywhere.
Public Act 4 is a piece of legislation that essentially allows the governor to unilaterally remove elected officials.
It gives one man the power over everything in city government without any checks and balances.
He has absolute power. We call him Superman on steroids, from the standpoint that he can make any and all decisions impacting a municipality without any input from the people who are paying the taxes and who are paying the freight for that person to be there.
Of Michigan announced an emergency state takeover of the city's finances today. Margaret Warner has our report.
The Flint water was corroding its engines. They got permission from the unelected emergency manager of Flint to disconnect from the Flint River and go back to the Detroit water. It would be another year before the people of Flint were finally allowed to disconnect from the corrosive Flint River as their water supply and hook up again with the Detroit water. We're going to go talk to a GM worker who works at the plant and worked there at the time that GM recognized and the state acknowledged that they could no longer use Flint water because it was destroying the engines.
My name is Ronald Jameson, known as Coach Hollywood.
And how long have you worked at the Flint engine plant?
39 years, going on 40 this year.
So you were working there when Flint hooked up with the Flint River and was disconnected from the Detroit water supply?
Yes.
What happened at the plant?
Well, from what I hear, it basically was saying that it was causing corrosion. And what that was causing, they were saying something to the fact of what they were putting in the water. And they were saying we got this stuff called rust inhibitor. It keeps the engines from rusting while they're waiting to have oil put on it. And they went, I guess, tested it and found out, I guess, we were putting too much chlorine in the water. And so they told Flint that you're causing us to lose engines because we have to tear them down and get the rust out before we can send them back.
And so the emergency manager gave you a waiver and said you can disconnect from the Flint River and go back to the Detroit water system?
Well, what they did, they made an agreement, from what I hear, that they could leave, but once we got our water back right, that they would come back.
And you never got your water right?
No.
So how did you feel? I mean, you were a worker in the plant, but you're also a Flint resident, and that very water that was causing rust in the engine, you were drinking here in Flint.
Matter of fact, they took all the water fountains out of the plant. We have all water coolers throughout the plant.
So what do you think about that?
To be serious, I made a joke to one of the supervisors that I was going to sue them because they knew something had to be wrong, and they never said nothing. All they said was, we're not going to use it.
That was Ronald Jameson. His friends call him Hollywood. He's worked at the Flint engine plant for 39 years. So the emergency manager decides that to preserve the engines, the GM plant can switch back to the Detroit water system. But the people of Flint could not.
Leah Cronkite is not happy with the water coming out of her tap.
It wasn't so bad at first when they first made the switch, but it's gotten progressively worse. I can't drink it at all.
Cronkite wants the city, like many, to switch back to Detroit water.
I don't know if it would solve all the problems, but we didn't have that smelly, bad, foul-tasting water.
But emergency manager Jerry Ambrose says there's a slim to none chance of switching back to Detroit.
It will clearly cost this city $1 million more per month were it to go, possible to go back to Detroit. Secondly, we do not have a direct connection to Detroit anymore.
Ambrose also says there's a perception issue about Flint water. He says water giveaways like the one at Gilley's Coney Island in Mount Morris not helping with the city's image. Ambrose maintaining Flint's water is safe.
It clearly is an issue of concern for us.
Melissa Mays, once a healthy mother of three, blames her family's recent health problems on the city's water.
It was in the fall of 2014, we started to lose our hair, all 5 of us. And we started developing rashes on our arms and our face, and it would go away, and it hurt. So, we'd ask questions, and they'd tell us, oh, the water's just a little harder. It's fine. Hey, guys, I want you to come in here and get some water.
But it was far from fine. Her children's blood tests revealed high exposure to lead. So how did Flint's water supply become contaminated? To save money, the city stopped pumping water from Detroit and started pumping it from the Flint River. The problem is it's a lot more corrosive, damaging Flint's aging pipes and leaching lead into its water supply.
Man, if I can smell it, this is not a big debate. This is nothing that nobody can figure out.
We hadn't had a problem with just purchasing water. That's pretty much a luxury, but now that it's a must, we have to have it.
The smell and taste showing up slowly over 2 weeks as Flint switched from Detroit River to the Flint River. Bad enough in some areas that people are avoiding using water for everything from drinking, cooking, and even bathing.
And when I'm showering and bathing, my skin just feels just a little bit different. So the smell from the water and the shower one kind of convinced me that the water is not the same.
I know what hard water feels like against my skin because I have very sensitive skin.
Thousands of Flint residents are facing eviction for failing to pay for water that's literally poisonous. Wow. As you know, Early has served as city administrator and interim mayor, but since then, Flint's problems have increased. It has broken its homicide record, and the debt has increased as well. Despite all of this, Early says he can lead the city in the right direction. Darnell Early is back in his old office.
This is the same office I occupied when I was here from 2001 until 2004.
But he's got a new title and even bigger problems to deal with.
There's still some challenges, obviously.
Challenges like a dwindling police force, an increase in debt, and that unwanted title as America's most violent city.
We do have some crime statistics that are dropping, but we have way too many homicides. Way too many children are getting killed.
Early says public safety is a priority. He's already hired a new police chief. His other priority, getting Flint out of state control, and he's got a timeline.
Certainly within an 18-month time frame, we'll know exactly where we are and how soon after that we'll be able to transition back to a normal home rule order.
That transition is what city leaders are waiting for.
I'm looking for this chapter of an appointed manager to be over as quickly as possible.
We need to start talking about transition advisory board.
Thank you, Commissioner.
We've been very concerned since the release of the early medical center data, which indicated that children in Flint appear to be experiencing an increase in blood lead levels. Our recommendation is that individuals who might be using the City of Flint water supply, either residents or people who work in the community, should not be using that water supply unless it has been tested to assure it does not contain elevated lead levels, or that they can verify that it's being filtered through an approved filter that's certified by the National Sanitation Foundation to remove lead.
Doing stunts here, but and this used a filter. The water around this table, was Flint water that was filtered.
Michigan's Attorney General is going to announce 3 criminal charges related to the tainted water there. The people facing charges are said to be 2 state officials with the State Department of Environmental Quality and also water treatment plant supervisor in Flint. People in Flint have been using bottled water since it was revealed the city's water supply was tainted with lead after the city switched supplies 2 years ago. Many residents have gotten sick, and authorities are now trying to determine whether the toxic water caused an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease that killed 10 people.
People charged today both held financial positions in Ingham County before becoming emergency managers for Flint. Clayton Cummins has more on the jobs that Jerry Ambrose and Darnell Early once had in mid-Michigan and why the mayor of Lansing is defending one of them.
Jerry Ambrose and Darnell Early have long records of public service. Before coming to work for the city of Lansing, Jerry Ambrose worked for Ingham County from 1986 to 2005 as county controller. He then moved to the city of Lansing as a finance director and executive assistant to Mayor Verge Bernero, and also served on the capital city's financial health team.
What do we want now? What do we want? We want. What do we want now? If we don't get it, shut it down. What do we want?
And it was ridiculous that they switched us over to the Flint River, and then they charged us more. Wasn't the whole point in the river water was supposed to be cheaper because Detroit water was so expensive?
It is the same person that created the problem and closed his eyes, turned his head, that now we are expecting to fix the problem. At this point in time, it doesn't really seem like they're doing much of anything except playing the blame game and trying to say, oh, well, it's this person's fault or it's that person's fault.
Why is this taking so long? Is this part of your plan to kill us off slowly so you don't have to deal with us? Because our poverty level is already so low.
They say there's money here, there's money there, but it doesn't seem to make it split. And if it does, it's awful funny that nobody knows where it went. I don't understand what's the delay. I've not seen any work.